Did you know that there were this many Palestinian flags in your country? I had no idea. You see these protests all over the country. How are there so many Palestinian flags? Like some of these protests have happened, I guess, within like the ability for Amazon to deliver to people's houses. But some of these protests were right after Hamas murdered 1,400 Jews in Israel, like the day after. So that means people had these Palestinian flags on hand, ready to wave in the streets. So who are these people in the streets waving these flags? Different groups of people, I suppose. Maybe let's break them up into three groups. One group are people who have been brainwashed into supporting the oppressed all the time, right? It's like solidarity. They think of themselves as like allies, right? So if I'm a member of an oppressed group, I have to support any other oppressed group as well as an ally. And Israel is the big bad military, and they're the occupiers and the colonizers against poor little old Gaza. So we have to support the Palestinians, right? So that's one group. And that's where you get it's like ignorant white women and queers for Palestine. Queers for Palestine. Did you ever look at that thing? What is that flag? Good night. You wave that in Palestine and they will cut your head off. All right, so you got that group of people, just like the fellow oppressed. Then you have terrorist sympathizers. These are people that have just come out of the woodwork over the last months here, right? College professors cheering on Hamas, a terrorist organization. This woman right here, right? She posted this cartoon. We can't even show it on the TV. It is a cartoon of 5 babies on their backs with a Star of David sliding across and severing off the heads of the babies that are now separated from their bodies and blood is gushing everywhere. Okay, she posted that on her Facebook page. Now you're like, oh, well, crazy woman, and people who do crazy things all the time. She was a lecturer at the University of San Diego, and she was a prominent San Diego interfaith leader. All right, her husband is the head imam at the Islamic Center of San Diego, which is the largest mosque in San Diego, which just so happens to be where 2 of the 9/11 hijackers went when they were learning how to fly airplanes into buildings. So we have these sympathizers to terrorists that have come out of the woodwork, and I had no idea there were that many of them. Then you have your terrorists. And I don't know what the answer is to this question. What's the line between a terrorist sympathizer and a terrorist? Is it this huge cavern that can never be crossed? Or is it a very fine line that could be crossed in a moment's notice? Hard to say. I suppose we'll know soon enough. Either way, it's not a small number. And it's getting worse with people coming across our border. Forget about the homegrown. That's a problem too. But we're bringing in more people. We found out fiscal year 2023, 2.5 million encounters at the border, right? Plus 600,000 known gotaways. So we're well over 3 million illegal immigrants in last fiscal year. Now you're thinking, okay, that's just, what about the unknown gotaways? I don't even know. We don't know. If there's 600,000 known gotaways, is there that many unknown gotaways? More? I don't know. So we're millions and millions of people come across the border in 1 year. Right? That doesn't include people who are here on an expired visa, which is about 60% of the people who are here illegally are here on an expired visa. Now, they didn't come across the border. They flew in with a visa and they just stayed over. It's 60% of the people here illegally, right? That's how the 9/11 hijackers got it. Okay, so not all these people are terrorists. Right? Let's say there's 3-4 million people who come across our border. They're not terrorists. Okay. Because some are from whatever. Peru. Right? But we have a number for how many people could be terrorists, a closer number, more accurate number. Last fiscal year, there were 73,000 people who were caught at the border, who are what we call special interest aliens. These are people from countries with known terrorist ties, like Middle Eastern countries, Somalia, Yemen, places like that. 73,000 of those. On top of that, we caught 150 people who are on the terror watch list. They're already on it. Right? So the 73,000 are people who should be on it, or who knows what they really believe, and but we have 150 people who are already on the watch list that we caught. We don't know how many we missed. What are we doing here? Why would they, if you are on the terror watch list, why would you want other than to commit terror? Like, they want to work in the strawberry fields? They want to come make a better life for themselves? They're giving up their life of terrorism in Somalia, and they're coming here to America to start a family. What are we doing? Why are they here? What was their plan? Well, the head of the Department of Homeland Security went in front of the Senate and pretty much refused to answer any question about this, about people coming across our border, about known terror groups, saying that the Homeland Security takes appropriate enforcement action. One of the senators asked the head of, Mayorkas is his name, the head of Homeland Security, if he would provide a list of the countries of origin of the people who have come across who are on that terror watch list. And he said that data would be provided at, quote, an appropriate setting, meaning not a public setting. So it leads one to believe, and that's the theme of our special here, this word sleeper cell. It's been a while since maybe you've heard this word sleeper cell. Is it a real thing? A sleeper cell? And if it's real, is it a real concern? We'll talk about that with some of our wonderful experts coming up next. How much have these sleeper cells infiltrated America? We'll know one day. But we now know more than ever how many of these people, at least sympathizers, have infiltrated our systems. From academia, as we just talked about, to the media. Do you remember the story of the rocket that was launched out of Gaza and it failed and it hit the hospital in Gaza and everyone in the media blamed Israel for it? Remember that story, right? One of the CNN authors of one of those stories, I was like, I wonder who this person is. Her name's Hannah Sak-Noor. And I just went to her Twitter profile and it's right there. She has the Palestinian flag right in her Twitter bio. The intellectual rot is deep inside of our country already. And they've been pushing this on our kids for a long time now. Recent poll, I believe it was Harvard, 51% of young people, 51%, 18 to 24-year-olds, think that what Hamas did was justified. And people kept focusing on the young. Can you guys throw that up one more time? People keep focusing on the young people, 18 to 24. But the next bracket, 25 to 34, it's 40, was it 48? 48! It's not much better. Gosh. Has our culture changed so much that that's just it? That's who we are now. Do you know what I mean? Like 9/11 was a shock when it happened. It's a total shock to most people. It was to me. I guess maybe now if something happened, if there was a terrorist attack, maybe we won't be shocked when it happens. Is that a consolation? I don't know. But gosh, we have forgotten so many truths. We've just forgotten it. Quick sidebar. We talked about this on my podcast the other day, Politics by Faith. I'll just do the very quick video. So Joshua and God parted the Jordan River, right? And Joshua and the Israelites walked across to the Promised Land. And God told Joshua to get 12 stones and make a memorial of this event so that your children and grandchildren will see the memorial and ask, what are these rocks for? And you can explain to them all the things that God did for you, God did for you, right? And they did. And the book of Judges, the next book, the book of Judges, says that everyone was going great. Everything was going great when Joshua was alive and the elders were alive and they were obeying God and they were following the commandments of the Torah and everything was wonderful. And then the rest of Judges, Judges 2, everything goes to pot because Joshua dies and the elders died. And while they were alive, the people of Israel served the Lord all the days. But then the elders died. And Judges 2 says, there arose another generation after them who did not know the Lord or the work that he had done for Israel. They forgot. And then they just kept on doing again and again and again what was right in their own eyes, disobeying God, and it went very poorly for them. And it's because they forgot. They forgot what they had. They forgot what was important. They forgot who they were. And I fear that that is who we are. I mean, listen, you got 48%, you got half of people, 34, and 34 is like pretty old. So it's like half of 34-year-olds and under are like, you know what, Hamas got a pretty good point. And they were justified in murdering babies. And I have a sinking suspicion, I hope this isn't true, that if there was a terrorist attack in America, I feel like half of Americans would be like, you know, that sounds about right. I think that's okay. We have been pretty bad, you know. Like if 9/11 happened now, I think half of Americans would be like, you know, Osama bin Laden has a good point. And it's because we totally forgot who we are, we forgot what's important. This is why Reagan's line, freedom is a fragile thing and never more than one generation away from extinction. Like that's what he meant. That's true. Like that's what happened with the Israelites. They forgot. And Reagan said, those who have known freedom and then have lost it have never known it again. And we're at a tight spot right now. And when there is a terrorist attack in this country, I don't know how we will react to it. If we have completely lost sight of what we're defending and who we are and what makes this country special, then we will not react well. So how big is this threat?
Top of the homegrown violent extremist and domestic violent extremist threat, we also cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here on our own soil. We have kept our sights on Hamas and have multiple ongoing investigations into individuals affiliated with that foreign terrorist organization.
Right, it's the FBI director, Chris Wray. Dakota Wood is here. He was the lead operational and logistics planner for U.S. Central Command during the initial response to September 11th, 2001, which we talked a bit about in the opening segment. He's now the senior research fellow at the Center for National Defense at the wonderful Heritage Foundation. Mr. Wood, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I wish we were talking about, more optimistic, positive things rather than terrorists.
I know. Here we are again. 20 years ago. I mean, gosh, you were in the thick of it. What's different about our country now than 20 years ago during 2001?
Well, I think this is just a nature of people and human behavior, that after you've been dealing with a problem for a while, it becomes old, people become complacent. The threats that were really manifest in 9/11, we still had smoldering wreckage in, a field in Pennsylvania, New York City, and Washington, D.C., the Pentagon area. But after all that period of time, it kind of recedes into the background. And so we tend to forget that there are enemies of the United States active in the world, plotting to do harm against us and our interests and our citizens. But that can sound like warmongering and fear-mongering, and other issues come up in the news cycle to take its place. So there was clarity in 2001, clarity in 2003 when we invaded or liberated Iraq, depending on your choice of words. And now we're seeing what's going on in the Middle East, and people tend to want to avoid hard truths until it really comes to bite them in yet one more terrorist attack. And that's kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, that's right. How high, and you can use any scale you'd like, I don't know how people like you, smart people like you think about this, but how high would you say the threat is of a considerable terrorist attack in America?
My assessment would be a 7 or 8. People will tend to want to go to the upper end of a scale, but when you do that, then there is no higher. You can't go to 11 or 12, right, on a 10-point scale. Yeah. When something really does manifest. But you all have been tracking the number of illegals coming across the border, how many are on the terror watch list, how many tens of thousands are from countries of concern, meaning our authorities don't have somebody to talk to on the other end to run a criminal background check or something along those lines. So when you've got 120 or 150 known individuals on the terror watch list that have come across the border just during the term that Joe Biden has been in office, it's a very concerning thing. The nature of cells, right, sleeper cells, is that they're sleeper, right? They maintain secrecy. They try to hide their movements and the nature of their communications. Whereas on the defense side, meaning our law enforcement and intelligence agencies, they have to get it right every single time. The terrorist only has to get it right once. So, think about the bombings that occurred at the Boston Marathon. Think about what could occur at an entertainment venue here in the United States, or a music concert or a shopping mall. So when you have people who are undocumented moving around in the United States, you have the United States in support of Israel against terror elements like Hamas, it is not beyond the realm of possibility and even likelihood that there are groups in the United States plotting to do harm to the United States and our citizens.
Why do sleeper cells still sleep? Or maybe flip it around. What would cause a sleeper cell to be awake and do something?
Well, yeah, it's all timing and opportunity. So one, you have to get into the country. You have to be able to hide your presence or to merge inside the population in some way. I doubt that those on the terror watch list were heading to California for $20 an hour jobs at a fast food restaurant, right? They're here to do harm. So now you have to accumulate intelligence. You have to get the equipment, a munition or an explosive, develop your plan of attack, whatever that is. And then there's opportunity. Do you go out on a Saturday morning? Is there some big gathering? Are you actually responding to somebody in the Middle East? And maybe they want to hold you in kind of a holding pattern or in a sleeper sort of mode until some bigger plan manifests. Maybe Iran is planning to attack Israel. The United States would be there for Israel, but Iran would just as soon have something really bad happen domestically to distract the United States government and our citizenry. So there are all these variables at play. And unless you're inside that command structure and that planning element, it's really hard to know for certain what their timing and what their decision-making apparatus really is.
Yes. And I'm thinking of, you brought up Boston Marathon. I'm thinking of what a terrorist attack could even look like these days. I guess it could be two brothers, like in Boston, or 18, it doesn't take a lot of people. 9/11 was 18 people. I don't know if we have any numbers of how many Hamas terrorists killed 1,400 in Israel, but it could be like a couple hundred guys doing like a full-on blown like big operation. Right? That'd be crazy. What are you thinking it could look like?
Well, I mean, the possibilities ran that entire gamut. The more people you have involved, the more opportunity there is for leaks, for somebody doing something stupid that kind of gives away the plan out of some sense of bravado or whatever. They post something to social media that triggers some kind of an artificial intelligence driven algorithm looking for keywords or phrases or some kind of communications network, right? So the more people you have involved, especially in a coordinated way, the more risk the organization or the terrorist element runs. So the more effective way is to have very small, down to the level of the individual or maybe a couple of people that are operating almost independently. And a terrorist organization really benefits if somebody is sympathetic to their cause, but is acting on their own volition, right? I'm going to show my solidarity with Hamas or Hezbollah or Iran because I hate Jews or whatever that reason is. And so they take it upon themselves, to grab a high-powered rifle or to manufacture an explosive out of fertilizer. Remember Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City many years ago? That had nothing to do with a foreign entity. It was actually a domestic, terrorism sort of thing. We had the big shooting incident that occurred at a country music concert in Las Vegas. So these things can spring from a domestic audience. It doesn't have to be masterminds in Tehran, Iran, right? But it can be an individual possessing the willingness to do something and then just choosing a method of attack. A big SUV plowing through a crowd, at some kind of demonstration can certainly inflict a lot of harm and damage and kill people. So the possibilities run the gamut of the imagination.
Let me ask you this bit of a philosophical question, Brett. I remember back 20 years ago, when we were having conversations like this, and people said, you're overblowing it, Mr. Wood. It's not a big deal. A shooting here or there, whatever. Cancer kills 1,000 times more people or whatever. Let's keep it into perspective versus other crimes and terrorism. Why is terrorism different to the psyche of a people, of a culture, of a civilization than other regular run-of-the-mill normal crime?
Yeah, well, why are machine guns and mortar rounds somehow acceptable in combat, but poison gas isn't? Right? So and I'm not making light of it. I'm saying that there is this psyche, exactly what you're talking about, this psychological effect in terms of how the use of violence or force is kind of normalized and socially accepted or approved rule sets. So we have police officers that carry a firearm and can use that under the authority of law, but it's different for somebody to take the same kind of firearm and break into a home and shoot the homeowner dead in order to steal something out of the, a dresser drawer, right? So it's the application of violence in different ways. Nerve agents and poison gas and those sorts of things have generally been outlawed by most civilized communities, right? And yet everybody has missiles. Everybody wants fighter aircraft and bombs. So it's this sense of terrorism that it springs up unexpected, that it attacks people at their most vulnerable. If you're on a war footing, you're kind of expecting a uniformed, understood enemy to operate in certain ways. But when something comes at you from inside the community, and usually it is not striking at hardened targets like a police station or a military force, it's striking kids at an elementary school or shoppers out at the local grocery store. And there's just something wrong about that in this psychological normative state that we normally consider civilization and societies to operate within that sort of a framework.
Yeah, absolutely. We got about 1 minute, sir. How do you recommend people watching right now stay safe on an individual, personal level?
Well, it's sometimes we use phrases so often they become trite and nobody really, gives them consideration. But that phrase, see something, say something. You should know your community. You should know what's going on in and around your school or sports functions. And if you see something out of the ordinary, say something about that. Nobody's going to hold you, to blame for sending up an alarm. The vast majority of people are rational, reasonable, good folks. And if they're concerned about something, they should say that. So it's just individual awareness. In the DC area, we hear about carjackings and armed robberies and other sorts of crimes that occur at like 2 o'clock in the morning at some gas station or an alleyway. Why anybody is out walking down an alleyway at 2 o'clock in the morning is just nonsensical to me. It doesn't mean that they deserve to be attacked, but there is something about how we behave individually and maintaining awareness of our surroundings, being aware of our own personal security. And if you see something out of the ordinary, reach out to the local police officer or mention something to a family member who can take action on that. And so I think this individual responsibility and obligation, not only for your own circumstances, but for your broader community, is really the way to deal with these sorts of domestic problems when we get terrorism inside of our borders.
Dakota Wood from the Heritage Foundation. Colonel Wood, wonderful to talk to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.